Today we're looking at President James K. Polk. Hello, welcome to the Daily Bellringer. Please don't forget to subscribe and take a look at the questions down in the description. Also, don't forget to check out dailybellringer.com for resources that go with many of the Bellringer videos. James K. Polk was the 11th President of the United States from 1845 to 1849 and was a member of the Democratic Party. Polk is considered to be the last of the Jackson-era presidents, as Polk had been Jackson's biggest supporter and ally in the House of Representatives during Jackson's presidency. So not surprisingly, during Polk's presidency, he had policies that were very similar to Andrew Jackson. James Polk was born November 2nd, 1795 in Pineville, North Carolina. He was the first of 10 children born to Jane and Samuel Polk. His father, Samuel, was a farmer and slaveholder. In 1806, at the age of 10, his family moved to Tennessee, to the area near Columbia, Tennessee, where Samuel Polk became involved in politics, and actually Andrew Jackson visited their home several times. James was a very ill child, and as a child suffered a terrible infection which required emergency surgery. Now, it's believed that the surgery left James incapable of having children, as he never had any children of his own. In 1816, he enrolled in the University of North Carolina and began to study law. He graduated in 1818 and then moved to Nashville, Tennessee to continue studying law under Felix Grundy, who was a well-known congressman and senator from Tennessee. In 1819, James Polk was elected to his first public office as clerk of the Tennessee State Senate. For the next few years, Polk was extremely busy. In 1820, he opened his own law office in Columbia, Tennessee. He was then elected to the Tennessee House of Representatives. In 1824, he married Sarah Childress, who was from one of the most politically connected families in Tennessee. And then in 1825, he was elected to the United States House of Representatives. Polk would go on to serve 7 terms in the House of Representatives, including 2 terms as the Speaker of the House. Much of Polk's success was linked directly to his relationship with Andrew Jackson. And in the House, Polk aided Jackson in pushing through legislation such as the Indian Removal Act, and he supported Jackson in his bank wars. And although Polk opposed tariffs and had expressed support for South Carolina during the nullification crisis, he still remained loyal to Jackson and keeping the Union together. In 1839, Polk returned to Tennessee and won the election for governor, although he only held the seat for 2 years as he was defeated in 1841. Polk then set his sights on winning the Democratic nomination for vice president in the 1844 election. Former President Martin Van Buren was the leading candidate for the Democratic nomination, as he had only served 1 term as president. Against him, the Whig Party had nominated Henry Clay as their candidate for president. As the Democrats came together at their convention to choose their candidate, James Polk was only hoping to win the nomination for vice president. One of the primary issues of the time was the annexation of Texas and whether the United States should add it as another state and continue pushing west. Van Buren had voiced opposition to annexation, but then James K. Polk began aggressively promoting annexation, manifest destiny, and expansion of the United States to the west. This strong westward expansion platform Polk began to promote won him a lot of support from the Democrats, and surprisingly, Polk ended up winning the nomination for president instead of vice president. Polk went on to defeat Henry Clay in the general election in November of 1844, and on March 4th, 1845, he was inaugurated as the 11th President of the United States. Staying true to what had won him the presidency, Polk pushed for expansion. In December of 1845, Texas was officially annexed to the United States. From there, Polk began to push for acquisition of the Oregon Territory all the way north to the 5440 north latitude line. But the Oregon Territory was officially under the control of Britain at the time, and Polk did not want to go to war with them. So they negotiated a compromise to make the 49th parallel the border between the United States and Canada. In June of 1846, they signed the Treaty of Oregon. At the same time, Polk also had his eyes on California. Mexico had control of California and refused to sell it to the United States. Polk wanted war with Mexico, but Congress had to be the one to declare war. So in 1846, Polk sent troops into the disputed borderland areas between Mexico and Texas, and Mexico opened fire, starting the Mexican-American War. To learn more about the war, check out my other video, but the U.S. won the war and was able to gain a huge area of land to the west. Polk had run for president saying he would only serve for one term, so staying true to his word, he stepped aside in 1848 for Zachary Taylor to be elected the next president. Polk returned home to his home in Nashville, Tennessee, but quickly fell ill to cholera, which is a bacterial disease of the small intestine. James K. Polk died June 15, 1849, barely 3 months after leaving office. So with that, hopefully you learned something, and thanks for watching.